Year 1, Part 11. When Judy read an item from Events of the Week in a Charlottetown paper to the Silverbush girls one evening, they were only mildly and pleasantly excited over it. The Countess of Medchester, the paragraph stated, was visiting friends in Ottawa on her way home from Vancouver to England. "That do be the lady married to the Earl as is uncle of your cousin, Lady Gresham," said Judy proudly. Oh, it do be giving me a bit of a thrill, as Cuddle says, to read that item and reflect that we do be in a manner connected with her." "Even though she doesn't know of our existence?" laughed Pat. "I don't suppose Lady Gresham brags to her friends of her very distant relationship to a certain unimportant people on a Canadian farm." "Likely she thinks we're Indians," grinned Cuddles. "Still, as Judy says, there's a thrill in it." "When you see May Binney next time you can be saying, to yourself of course, you don't be having a fourth cousin in the English aristocracy, Miss Binney, and that'll be a satisfaction." "I shall say it to Trix," said Cuddles. "Indeed you won't," cried Pat. "Don't make yourself ridiculous, Cuddles. We're of no more importance in the Countess of Medchester's eyes, supposing she ever heard of us, than the Binneys. And who cares? Look at that froth of cherry bloom behind the turkey house. I'm quite sure there's nothing lovelier on the grounds of Medchester Castle. If there is a castle." "Of course there's a castle," said Judy, carefully cutting out the item. "An earl couldn't be living in anything humbler. I'm pinning this up on the wall by my dresser to show Tillytuck. He's never quite believed me when I told him of your being third cousin to a Lady Gresham." "Fourth, Judy, fourth." Oh, I might have made a bit of a mistake in the figure, but does it be mattering? Anyhow, this will convince him. He was by way of being a bit cranky this morning when he come in for breakfast, though he couldn't be putting an end to the rising. Like the centipede that had rheumatism in one of his legs but couldn't tell which. He was putting on some frills with me, but this will be one in the eye for him. A real countess with a maid to button her boots. Oh, I had a feeling last night there did be something strange in the air." When the letter came that day, being left in the mailbox at the road, just like any common epistle, and carried up to the house in Tillytuck's none too clean hand, Judy felt there was something stranger still in the air. A heavy, cream-tinted envelope with a dainty silver crest on the flap, addressed in a black, distinctive hand to Mrs. Alex Gardner, North Glen, P.E. Island, and postmarked Ottawa. The crest and the postmark had a very queer effect on Judy. She gave a gasp and looked at Gentleman Tom. Gentleman Tom winked knowingly. "Anybody dead?" said Tillytuck. Judy ignored him and called for Pat in an agitated voice. Pat came in from the garden, her arms full of the plumes of white lilac, McGinty ambling at her heels. Cuddles came running across the yard, the spring sunlight shining on her golden brown head. Judy was standing in the middle of the kitchen floor, holding the letter at arm's length. "Judy, what is it?" "You may well ask," said Judy. "Will you be looking at the crest and the postmark?" Pat took the letter. "I feel a thrill, several thrills," whispered Cuddles. "Thrills, is it? Sure, and you'll be having thrills with a vengeance if that do be what I'm thinking it is." "It's for Mother," said Pat slowly. "Mother was away for a visit at Glenwood. I suppose we'd better open it. It may be something requiring prompt attention." Judy handed Pat the paring knife. She had a presentiment that the letter should not be torn open like an ordinary epistle. Pat slit the envelope, took out the letter, likewise crested, and glanced over it. She turned red. She turned pale. She stared at the others in silence. "What is it?" whispered Cuddles. "Quick, I've got such a queer prickly feeling in my spine." "It's from the Countess of Medchester," said Pat in a hollow voice. She says she promised Lady Grisham she would see her cousins before she returned to England. She's coming to Charlottetown to visit friends, and she wants to come out here, next Saturday. Saturday! Poor Pat repeated the word as if Saturday meant the end of the world. For a moment nobody could speak. Even Tillytuck seemed to have passed into a state of coma. In the silence, Gentleman Tom reached over and dug a claw into his leg, but Tillytuck did not even wince. Cuddles was the first to recover. "Have the Countess of Medchester here?" she gasped. "We can't." But Judy had got her second wind. She was an expert in dealing with situations without precedent. Oh, maybe we can't, but we will. What's a countess when all is said and done? Sure, she'll eat and drink and wash behind her ears like any common person. What time of day will she be here, Patsy? The forenoon. She's leaving on the night boat. That means she'll be here for dinner, Judy. She will be in a good place for the same, then, I'm telling you. It will be a proud day for Silverbush, and no countess was ever atin and better meal than we can be putting up. But 'twill take some planning, so keep up your picker, Patsy, and let's be getting down to brass tacks. We've got no time for blithering. Sure, your countess can't be atin lilac blossoms. Pat came up gasping. She felt ashamed of herself. It was positively Binny-like to be flabbergasted like this. "You're right, of course, Judy. Let me see. This is Tuesday. The floors in the dining room and the big parlour must be done over. They're simply terrible. I'll paint them today and stain them tomorrow. I wish I could do something in the front door. The paint is all peeling off, but I daren't meddle with it. We must just leave it open and trust she won't notice it. Then, Cuddles, we have to go to Winnie's one day this week to help her get her sewing done. We should have gone last week, but I wanted to wait till this week to see their big crabapple tree in bloom. We'll go Thursday. That will give us Friday to prepare. We must take her to the poet's room, because the ceiling isn't cracked there, and it is in the spare room, and we must put the spread Mother embroidered on the bed. Sid can go for Mother Friday evening. It is a shame to have her visit cut short when it's her first for years, but of course she'd like to be here." Oh, and there'll be two great ladies together then," said Judy. "I'll match your mother again any countess in the world, sure, and a Bayshore Selby could hold her head with any of the quality." Pat was herself again. Tillytuck was lost in admiration of her. From that moment Silverbush was a place of excited but careful planning and overhauling and cleaning and decorating and discussing. Even Tillytuck had his say. "The dinner's the thing," he told them. "A good meal is never to be sneezed at, speaking symbolically." Everyone agreed with this. The dinner must be such as even the wife of a belted earl could not turn up her nose at. Pat did endless research among all her recipe books. Cuddles cut school to help. What was Latin and the chance of tattooing compared to this? It was decided to have fried chicken for dinner. Judy's fried chicken was something to dream about. "With sparrowgrass, sure, and sparrowgrass is a sort of lordly vegetable. You'll be making the sauce as you learned at the short course, Patsy dear. And will you be having time to hem-stitch the new napkins?" "Cuddles and I are going to sit up all night to do them. I think we'll have iced melon balls and ice cream for dessert, and a lemon coconut cake. We mustn't attempt too much." "Not to be ostentatious," agreed Judy, who dearly loved a big word now and then. "And, after all, she may be on a diet," grinned Cuddles. Cuddles had regained all her insouciance. Trix Binny would be sunk when she heard of it all. Positively sunk. "I hope she'll think Silverbush nice," breathed Pat. That was all she really cared about. "She couldn't be helping it," said Judy. "Let's be hoping it will be fine on Saturday. If it rains—" Judy left it to the imagination what would it be like to entertain a countess in a rainstorm. "It must be fine," was Pat's ultimatum. Do you think it wouldn't be a good thing to pray for fine weather? Suggested Cuddles, who felt that no chances should be taken. Judy shook her head solemnly. Girls, dear, I wouldn't. Ye can never be telling what comes of such praying. Well do I remember the day in South Glen Church when the minister, old Mr. McCary, did be praying for rain with all his might and main. When the people were going home from church, down comes a thunderstorm and drenches everybody to the skin. Old James Martin and old Thomas Urquhart were together, and Thomas says he, I do be wishing he hadn't prayed till we got home. Them McCarrys never could be moderate, says he. So you'd better be leaving it to nature, girls dear, and thank the good man above there'll be no Jerusalem cherries round. When she comes, Patsy dear, of course I'll keep in the background, but don't you be thinking I'd better have me dress-up dress on, in case she might catch a glimpse of me coming or going? Of course, Judy. And, oh, Judy, do you think you could coax Tilly Tuck to leave off that terrible old fur cap of his for one day, if she saw him going through the yard? Never be worrying over Tilly Tuck. He'll be away to town that day with the calves your dad sold, and none too well pleased about it. I'm thinking he wanted a glimpse of a countess, and trying to be sarcastic. He says to me, says he, keep a stiff upper lip, Judy. After all, your grandmother was a witch, and that sort of aristocracy, symbolically speaking. I'm not needing to stiffen me upper lip, says I. I do be knowing my place and keeping it, speaking the plain truth and no symbols. Tilly Tuck do be getting a bit out of hand. He was after smoking his pipe in the graveyard today, sitting on Wapping Willie's tombstone, as bold as brass. Aunt Edith and Aunt Barbara are terribly excited, said Pat. I wanted them to come over for dinner, but they wouldn't. Aunt Edith vetoed it. However, she very kindly offered to lend us her silver soup spoons. She said a countess could tell at a glance if the spoons were solid or only plated. I'm so glad our teaspoons are solid. Only they're so old and thin. Oh, they do be all the more aristocratic for that, comforted Judy. The Countess will be saying to herself, there's family behind them. Nothing of the mushroom in them, she'll be saying. And speaking of the Swallowfield folks, have you noticed anything odd about your Uncle Tom's beard? Yes, it has almost disappeared, sighed Pat. It's nothing more than an imperial now. When it disappears altogether, we'll be hearing some news, said Judy with a mysterious nod. But Pat had no time just then to be worrying over Uncle Tom's vanishing whiskers. By Wednesday night, Silverbush was ready for the Countess, or for royalty itself. On Thursday, Sid took Pat and Cuddles over to the bay shore to help Winnie with her spring sewing. They really sewed all the forenoon. In the afternoon, Winnie said, Never mind any more for a while. Come out in the wind and sun. We don't often have such an afternoon to spend together. They prowled about the garden, picking flowers, drinking in the crabapple blossoms, watching the harbour, and making nonsense rhymes. In the midst of their fun, they heard the telephone ring in the house.